Hello, everybody. Andy Jacob here with the DotCom magazine Entrepreneur Spotlight Series. What a very interesting show today. You know, we love people that are leading their particular space in their particular fields. And one thing that's very, very interesting right now that's on the top of everybody's mind is really fulfillment. I mean, you can't turn on the TV, you can't listen to the radio, you can't hear a podcast. I mean, without someone talking about fulfillment. So we were sitting around and we said, hey, let's bring on somebody that's really leading the way in what we're calling the future of omni-channel fulfillment. His name is George Wojciechowski. He is the co-founder and CEO of Manifest Commerce. And wow, what they're doing is really interesting. He's an industry leader. As you know, by watching the show, we love bringing leaders on the show because there's so much to unpack. George, welcome to the DotCom magazine Entrepreneur Spotlight Series today.
It's great to be here, Andy. Super excited for our conversation. You're absolutely right. Supply chain is in the conversation nowadays, now more than I can ever remember in my lifetime.
Okay, George, let's go. Let's start by pulling the lens back to 30,000 feet and tell us what you're doing at Manifest Commerce.
Yeah, so Manifest Commerce is a sustainable 3PL, third-party logistics company. We focus on doing omni-channel, meaning both direct-to-consumer and business-to-business e-commerce logistics, and we do it in a sustainable way. I've been in the business now for the better half of a decade, and the velocity of e-commerce has picked up considerably, where 2 or 3 years ago, my mom wouldn't have thought about ordering anything online. And now she gets most of her items, including her groceries, ordered online. So figuring out the supply chain and doing it in a way that doesn't leave a devastating carbon footprint is the objective of our company.
I love it. Of course, the greener supply chain with carbon neutral fulfillment and really zero plastic solutions is one of the things that I know interests you a great deal. What started this idea that you wanted to really change the world and be part of this megatrend as you started, Manifest Commerce?
Yeah, so a lot of it had to do with my previous competency over the last 7-8 years. Previously, I was co-founder of a fantastic company in Chicago called ShipBob, and we pioneered the democratization of e-commerce, where e-commerce businesses, people who wanted to create side hustles by getting a Shopify store or starting an Etsy business, were now able to achieve the same level of logistics performance as the bigger players in e-commerce, which if you think back to the late 2000s, early 2010s, you had like the Walmarts and the Amazons and the Dick's Sporting Goods of the world performing at a way different level than the smaller businesses, where you would order something from Etsy and it would take 2 weeks to arrive. We kind of evened that playing field and created a lot of value in doing so. And so we built a wonderful company there. But one of the things that we never kind of was at top of mind was the carbon footprint that our business was creating. Like, we could see it with our own eyes, but it never really was an alarming thing that we studied. And then COVID hit, and 2020 hit, and the velocity of e-commerce picked up considerably. And I couldn't help but to notice that worldwide e-commerce had picked up in a dramatic way. And knowing how stressed and at capacity the industry was, nobody was thinking about the sustainability portion of it. So conventionally, the way that logistics, e-commerce logistics and B2B logistics haven't been very friendly to the environment. So we took that knowledge, I took that knowledge with my team, and we kind of reversed engineered every part of the fulfillment process from a sustainability first mindset and perspective. And we came up with some really good solutions. We're absolutely plastic free. All of our fulfillment centers don't deal in plastics. What we found out in our research early on was that things such as conventional packing tape for e-commerce orders can take up to 500 years to biodegrade. Like, that's an unacceptable legacy of our generation. All of our shipments are carbon neutral or climate positive. We offset the carbon footprint ourselves, offer our customers, our merchants, to do the same, as well as their customers. So a lot of our transactions are actually climate positive. And we use recyclable boxes made from recyclable material and poly mailers made from recyclable material. For example, our poly mailers biodegrade in about 750 days, whereas traditional conventional poly mailers biodegrade in about 20, 25 years. So these are the steps that we've taken early on. It's not, we don't have all the answers, but it's more of a campaign to lead a transformative movement throughout e-commerce, so that we can continue to sustain the success as an industry that we've had over the last 5 or 10 years, and do it in a way that is also sustainable to the environment. Because, our thesis is that the current state of e-commerce isn't sustainable. We can't keep going on this route and growing at the double digits numbers that we have been, and continue to use the conventional methods of e-commerce fulfillment.
Wow, it's so interesting. Of course, many people don't even realize that supply chain logistics is one of the dirtiest global industries that there is. And by you offering this sort of earth-friendly third-party logistics solution is very, very important. Where does e-commerce go from here? I mean, like you mentioned, your mother now, orders everything online. In 10, 15, 20 years, how high is this amount of delivery going to be? Is just everything going to be delivered and stores just go away? Where does it go from here, George?
Yeah, pretty much. We're already seeing it now, where the overwhelming majority of the population, young people, foregone conclusion that they're used to ordering online. Baby boomers and some of the older generation are now ordering online in numbers that we haven't seen in ever before. So everybody's ordering online. We have nowhere to go but choose to do it sustainably, and finding a solution to do it sustainably. Like I said, the current state of e-commerce is unsustainable. The legacy that we'll leave behind is essentially, shameless consumers who are obsessed with, their Instagrams and TikToks and didn't care about the cost of the conveniences that they've built into their lives. And so I think e-commerce, it's inevitable that we do change. I think that the solutions we've already proven at Manifest Commerce are out there. And we're going to continue to focus on finding better and more sustainable ways to deliver packages and do fulfillment, so that people can maintain the conveniences that we've become accustomed to, but do it in a way that's guilt-free for both merchants and consumers.
Yeah, George, it's so powerful. Like you mentioned, the other day I was on the phone with my 89-year-old father-in-law, and we were talking about an item, and I said, I'll go down and get that for you. He said, don't bother, I'll order it online. And he's 89 years old, so you're exactly right. Let's talk about your team. I mean, you brought together really some of the leading industry experts to build this team of yours, George. Of course, a lot of people from ShipBob came over, of course, as well. How important for your group is to make sure that you have the best team available?
Yeah, it's essential. You can't do this alone. You can't lead a movement alone. You need a team who's just as passionate as we're just as passionate about creating a movement within e-commerce to a shift towards sustainability as we are about building a successful business. So it was actually really easy to put the team together because two of my co-founders, Bob Sixsmith and Max Stevens, were with me at ShipBob, and we worked very closely together for about 5 or 6 years. They have deep expertise in actual physical fulfillment, running some of the biggest facilities that are in North America. And people like them don't exist, to be honest with you, because usually with their depth of experience, they're 65 years old and thinking about the house near the golf course in Florida. They're not in their mid-30s with all the knowledge that they have in their head. So operationally, we have an amazing team that can execute on the needs of the modern e-commerce merchant. You've met my other co-founder, Jen Root. Jen is fantastic. She started multiple businesses in her young career, and most recently we were partnered up in e-commerce as she was running the partnerships program at a very well-known e-commerce agency out in California. And she leads up our marketing efforts. And we also have a gentleman named Cole Wenzel, who's fantastic, who essentially built out our customer support mechanism at my former company. And we have my good friend and former mentor back from my Goldman Sachs days, when we were on a trading desk together. Brad Stevens also recently joined our team, and he's been doing a fantastic job on the revenue side.
I love it, George. What a great team. And of course, the entire team believes in sustainable fulfillment. But let's talk about the other side of the coin, because retailers, they really want efficiency, right? So you're able to sort of bridge that gap between both the need for efficiency and your belief that you want to offer a sustainable fulfillment model. How hard has that been to bridge that entire gap to make sure that efficiency stays within your system?
Yeah, like we don't suffer fools, and we know that like if we're not able to compete on price and service, sustainability is a nice to have for a lot of merchants. There are some merchants who are like, holy smokes, I didn't know that you guys existed, and I'm going with you because this is an option that's been top of mind for a very long time. A lot of merchants have sustainable products, but when it comes to fulfillment, they kind of have to look the other way because they know that it's done in a way that is not necessarily green or sustainable. But the vast majority of e-commerce merchants, you need to have it make business sense. And we've taken great pains to create a model that delivers on what the expectations and needs are for the modern e-commerce business owner. We have one of the top 10 facilities through our partnership with a company called Vert in Atlanta. That's 750,000 square feet, automated with the latest and greatest in robotics. We have our flagship facility in Austin, Texas, which is powered by alternative energy. That's kind of our innovation center, where we're constantly trying to figure out better and newer ways to do fulfillment sustainably. So our value proposition is very strong. We know that if we can't compete from other proposals from conventional fulfillment companies, we're not going to be in the game. So I think merchants would be pleased to find that our prices are just as competitive as the rest of the industry, and our service, given that we've built omni-channel into the foundation, meaning both D2C and B2B, is a welcome solution. Because historically in the fulfillment business, you're either really good at B2B or you're really good at D2C. We've done both, and we've built it into the foundation, and we do it sustainably too. I don't know of any other companies that can do B2B fulfillment in a sustainable way. We take great pains to procure the best supplies and saran wrap or packing wrap to make sure all of those products are sustainable.
Yeah, I love it, George. Of course, we have read that you have some young nieces and nephews, and when you go to work, you're probably thinking about them and thinking about the future and the world that they're inheriting. How important is it for you and your team, to leave a legacy behind for this business that you're building that already is becoming a major success in the field?
Yeah. We all want the people we love and care about very deeply to experience the same beauty in life that we've been able to see. And if we don't pay attention and put in the effort to preserve that, it's going to be the legacy that we leave behind for these generations, and it's not going to look good. It's very important for me, kind of approaching midlife, to do something that is not only something that I can hang my hat on and wake up every morning and do with a deep amount of passion, but something that's important work for the rest of where the world needs to go. In the e-commerce business, we have solutions to become more sustainable, and I feel like that campaign to talk to merchants and let them know that we exist and this option exists to them is going to be super important. This is important work. Like, I'm not going to get the chance to, storm the beaches of Normandy or lead a civil rights movement. But if we can change e-commerce to be a climate positive business, that's something that I can be very proud of at the end of my life.
Yeah, I love it, George. Let's talk about technology just for a minute, because obviously, the Manifest technology connects seamlessly with everything: Shopify, WooCommerce, Magneto, BigCommerce, as well as, you can customize it very easily, for big box retailers as well. Let's talk about your technology team. I mean, They must be very, very busy and on point all the time for this seamless sort of technological integration. Am I right?
Yeah, I mean, they burn the midnight oil essentially around the clock. We have a phenomenal tech team that's constantly adding features. One of the cool things because we're so close with the technology and so close with our partners at Vert, is that we have input, and that input that we offer in terms of where the technology needs to go comes directly from the merchants. So it's actually a really cool competitive advantage, is that we listen to the merchants where they tell us what they need, and then we can go and build it, versus, hey, we think that this is what people need. A lot of that is already obvious, because e-commerce businesses, as we've seen over the last 10 years, they initially started out with a single Shopify store, then got on Amazon, and then Sephora came calling, and then now like Walmart wants their products, or some other big retailer. So there's a base level understanding of what the modern e-commerce business owner needs. They need both D2C and B2B, omni-channel, which is the word you hear a lot nowadays. But re-commerce, returns processing, how to optimize returns, is kind of been bleeding into the front of the conversation. And we've built out an amazing return solution with our partners, Retail Reworks in Houston, Texas, which allows our merchants to retain a lot of their returned inventory and put it back into stock quickly, so that they can sell those products on their online store.
Yeah, George, I love it. That reverse logistics part and component of the business is huge. Very few people think about that, but of course you are, George, at Manifest Commerce. I look at you as somewhat of a zeitgeist, a forward thinker, a shapeshifter. When we think about e-commerce and we think about the countries that maybe are about to explode with e-commerce that haven't quite exploded yet, what countries are we looking at that definitely are going to need some type of omni-channel fulfillment that's sustainable, because they're about to explode in a very powerful way with their e-commerce businesses?
Yeah. First companies that come to mind, Mexico. Mexico is an undiscovered territory where there's a lot of efficiencies in the supply chain that can be achieved by working within the Mexican borders. South America, Colombia, Argentina, there's this new splash of wealth being created there as American technology companies switch to nearshoring, or nearshoring becomes a thing versus offshoring. So there's a lot of young, tech-savvy people with good amount of spending power coming up in those economies. Asia has always been very logistics forward because of the density of the population there. Whether you go to Korea or Hong Kong or Singapore, Malaysia, the density just warrants the fact that they come up with amazing logistics solutions. So they're kind of already, setting the pace in a way. And in Europe is something that still needs to be untangled a bit, because you have these countries, you have this continent roughly, close to the size of the United States, and each country kind of looks like a US state, but they all have their own rules and regulations, and it makes it somewhat of a complicated environment. It's not too complicated, but it can definitely become a lot more prosperous if they kind of figure out a standard across the continent in regards to duties, taxes, shipments, and things like that. So I would say Europe has a ways to go still to figure things out, but they're definitely working on it. But I'm excited about South America.
Yeah, South America is great, and I love that so much. They're doing so many great things. Now, George, let's talk about entrepreneurship. I mean, you've got a great journey. I mean, your entrepreneurial background and experience is really remarkable. For the younger entrepreneurs watching the show, maybe they're in startup mode, maybe they're raising their seed round, maybe they're in, Series A, maybe they're having a tough time, maybe they're hitting a roadblock, maybe they're hitting a pothole in the road, maybe they freeze, maybe they don't know what to do. I'm hoping you might be able to share some insight, George, to the younger entrepreneurs watching the show about what it takes to get through that tough time as an entrepreneur and keep on going.
Yeah, great question. It's really hard. It's really hard. And I think entrepreneurs need to constantly remind themselves of the why they decided to go to pursue this course and to pursue this business, and fuel themselves with the passion that this business needs to exist because it's going to help the world or create something that doesn't already exist in such a way. The journey is super hard. There's going to be so many potholes. You'll have days where you think you've made progress this far, and you just find out that every day is just slow, incremental progress. But you build and you keep your eye on what this company can become. And that's going to keep you going. Keep that vision of what this company can become vibrant in your mind, and the potholes along the way are not going to feel as deep.
I love it, George. Of course, you and I both know as entrepreneurs that if you're not hitting some potholes along the way, you're not pushing hard enough. So
you're not doing anything. Yeah, you got to throw yourself into the mix regularly and be comfortable with that.
Yeah,
you got to get comfortable with the uncomfortable.
Yeah, that's great. I'm going to bring you back on the show. We're going to talk all about entrepreneurship for the full 30 minutes. But wow, I mean, what you're doing at Manifest Commerce is awesome. It's really the future of omni-channel fulfillment. And it's just fantastic to have you on the show at this point in time. I probably won't be able to slice out 30 minutes of your time in the near future because I know where you're going and what's happening with the company. So, George, I wanted to thank you so much for coming on the show today, bringing us inside what's happening, Manifest, a little bit about your background experience, giving back to the entrepreneurial community. This has been a great interview, and thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Amazing. It's been fun. Thank you, Andy.